She found me through our mutual friends, which had just published our first chapbooks. She showed up later at my house, this cool, free-spirited force. I was mesmerized by her. I remember the first time I read her work after she left my house for the first time. Her chapbook, One Throne, with its keen observations and blend of pop culture, humor, and enormous depth and wisdom, completely captivated me. I had no idea how a person could blend the vernacular with the sublime, Cheeto with the mystery of existence. After I read her, I had the joy of going on a reading tour with her, where I saw these poems come to life through her ability to perform and captivate an audience, which I know she'll do this afternoon. I also became her friend, and I've walked alongside her in the tragedy she's experienced at that time. I'm not going to lose you anymore. Rae is a woman who doesn't let the darkness and terror of the world distract her from her purpose. She has a real and important gift, the ability to understand and explain the complexities of being a woman, being Jewish, being a mother, and existing in America today in the most beautiful and moving way. American Bitch is this distilled. Rae uses football in all its brutality to represent what America, in all its patriarchal beginnings, values. Through this lens, the audience can examine America as we do a canvas, a Rothko painting, which is also a motif in this collection. As we stand here together today, as America unravels before us, we're given the gift of this book, which reminds us, in the very first poem, there is no punishment for people unloading guns into one another. No turning back, just turning from. She juxtaposes the beauty of birth, of her daughter Ivy, with the terror we all feel about where the world is going, the terror of what the world is. I could go on and on about all of Rae's accomplishments, how she's published poems in top journals, won awards, how she's transitioned and transformed from the corporate world to this yogi doula wonder she is now, tirelessly fighting for other women in every way she can. But you all know that about Rae. She fights and she gives. She has given us this book, American Bitch, as an indictment of America, but also as a celebration of America. As Rae says in her poem, Tattoos, if I can celebrate anything, I will. Please join me in celebrating Rae Hoffman Jager for the amazing feat of this crucial book and for everything she will continue to accomplish.
Feel very naked up here, you know? It's like you want to have a quick, well, anyone come here, just stand in front of me. Just stand like this. Okay. There's also a manual sitting up here, Cincinnati Poet Laureate, kind of a big deal. So it's Poet Laureate next to future Poet Laureate. Okay. I'm going to read you the first poem in this book. It's called The End of the World, and just curious, how many people have been to a poetry reading before? Oh, I'm surprised that. You don't have to clap after. That's like a weird thing, is there's this silence, and that's okay. You just like take away whatever you hear, because I know we're not a country of listeners, and it's very hard to like hear the whole poem, and that's okay. If you just hear one thing you like, that's great. It's the end of the world. So just a little bit of context. We've had experiences here in war shootings, and we've had days of the year. And this is a poem about how men are terrible. So, I mean, sorry, most of the shooters are red, but also just it feels like end times. So take that with you while you're listening to this. It begins with a splinter of some kind, a bunch of old men sitting in a circle, deciding which laws to bend first. It sounds like crunching, a wood chipper eating itself. Outside, it always looks like it's going to rain, and that rain is going to burn. If only you could have seen this coming, taken matters into your own hands. You tried, I remember, climbed the secluded mountain to pray, hit your phone with a rock, put crystals all over your body, and when that didn't work, you gave up. I'm sorry for all those I have failed. The trees are limp and the old god's dead. There is no punishment for people unloading guns into one another. No turning back, just turning from. See, isn't that nice and awkward when there's just okay, so not all poetry has to be sad. Poetry can be funny. So this is called Ode to Data Mining, and it's this idea that our phones know everything about us. That's not like a new concept. Our TVs probably know more about us than the people we are married to. That's also not new information. So this is an ode to that. Call me by my secret name, Google, the one I utter only on VChat. Order my boy shorts, size medium, made of cotton and lace. Suggest my favorite post-rock driving music. Thai food within 5 miles of home. Tell me how to get to work when the arteries of highway clog, seize. Sell my shower musings. Advertise my small batch kumquat jalapeno jam to the right demographic. Okay, Google, fine. Determine the gender of my future baby. Predict the day I will die. Tell me what Harry Potter house I am in, goddammit. Do it quickly. Sorry, Grandma. I don't have much time. Send me videos of hamsters eating tiny gourmet meals. You should seriously YouTube that, it's great. So I can feel hunger. Load all the pictures I don't want to see for my relationship back in 2013. Map my house, Roomba. Sell the floor plans and spoils of wood floors. All of those tiny black dog hairs must be good for something. Okay, one more maybe funny poem, and then we'll go down the dark hole. We won't really. Okay, maybe this will resonate with some of us. It's called Straw Millennial. This is very much a poem written. It should be called Ode to Millennials. First, get a couple degrees in something useful, like English or art history. You've been laughing at my own poem. So you can spend time contextualizing the quotes on limited edition Starbucks cups, or identifying the style of old city buildings. Work as an adjunct and barista, so you can feel the crippling sense of academic stagnancy and worthlessness, but get enough coffee to grade on weekends. Get broken up with by your college boyfriend and a few others because you weren't enough of something they saw on TV. Obsessively look at houses on Zillow during that time and save up a miraculous 10K by cutting out avocado toast. Speculate about retirement, but only for a minute or two, because even though you saved most of your money, you didn't save enough. Plus, every old white guy who has ever explained to you how investing works smells like rust. True story. You don't trust rust. So give up on having a more rigid life plan. Throw down 10% of your paycheck at ye old tavern and cry a little into your gin and tonics. Have the bright idea to take your dad's camper from 1972 that he tried to get you to live in grad school. Start spending your weekends in junkyards, learning the songs of old car hoods and refrigerators. Visit garage and yard sales to find the missing pieces you think you need. Let each nail and screw build you until one day a beautiful house on wheels that you never planned is done. Don't live in it. Sell it to one of your students for $30,000. Still spend 10% of your paycheck at ye old tavern. Admit you don't learn lessons easily. Build a few more cheap homes and each time feel a little lighter, like all of those controlling affluent men hanging off of you, the ones who run city council, university departments, your bank, even the micro governments inside your body are losing their grip so that something else may grow. Admit you were good at using your hands. Even though your grandma says you lack ambition. I know. I never built a house on wheels. It's a fiction. Laugh because you know most wouldn't even know how to nail together a coffin, and yours has wheels. Not all of these poems are autobiographical, so that's an important. I'm going to read just a couple of football poems, and then I don't know. You all can, let me know what you want to hear, or we can just read why do you want to. That's cool too. Let's see. Okay, this is one of my favorites. This is a poem all about how it's not how the strong ones make it through history. It's never about how the smart ones make it through history. It's always the people who are just lucky, people who have brute something, but it's usually just luck. So keep that in mind when you're hearing this. Hey, Jennifer. History is made by the victors, literally a person named Victor. When the wars have halted and the smoke clears, The last man standing is always some noodle you'd never expect to survive a fart. Victor. Cowardly, greedy Victor. Every Victor I've ever known has been an ass. Victor eating the last slice of pie. Victor taking $50 from his grandmother's purse. Caligula Victor, spoiling the last episode for everyone on social media. Victor with his hen feather comb over. Victor pressing his grubby thumb into all the peaches in the produce aisle because he is feeling rotten. Victor buying 12 Bud Lights, not tipping the bartender, and hitting on your wife. Victor is conveniently installed at every atrophied corner of history with a smirk. Because luck is the true ruler and Victor has plenty of it. Because justice is only the name of a tween apparel store. Because it's not the remarkably smart or strong ones that make it out alive, never. Think of all the noteworthy people who fall quietly off the cosmic cliff every year. As my father, whose name is not Victor, said, you don't win a chapter in the book by sticking out your neck. You win by grabbing the nearest blunt object and swinging it around. It's true. Remember that, everyone. You can't control everything. That's the yoga teacher in me. I was going to make everyone sit down and say, inhale through the belly, exhale, sigh away. But let's read 2 more poems. Is everyone for that? Not wearing my watch, so I'm really just freeballing it up here. Okay, so my dad would occasionally take us and to Repo cars. He was a used car dealer, okay? And that is like, as you can imagine, a little bit dangerous. Taking 5 children in a 14-passenger car, hopping out of the car and being like, Gail, go, where's mom? And then she would look at it and like, we would see from the rear view mirror, you know, him pulling up someone's garage door and then running outside, like, what the hell are you doing? That was a joy. So here's a poem of that memory captured. It's called Still Life of a Repo Without a Truck. Without a tow truck. To be fair, he only did this like 3 times. This wasn't like a weekend thing. Every once in a while, my father would put down his wrench and begin his repo ritual. Puff out his chest, smooth his mustache, open the top drawer of his desk and touch the handle of his gun. He'd send for all 6 of us to come along. My mother bristled in the front seat of the van and she dropped him off in front of a garage. He would have to pull open anything on the other side. It's dangerous, but less so with cute kids. So we would hear out of his mud glass with our big brown eyes like that ass. And as some ran from their houses to threaten or curse us, we could hear over the sound of idling van. But occasionally we saw through the windows of those houses a child our age, equally prisoner, staring back, neither one of us daring to look away. Okay, I'm going to read 2 more. One is about going to football games, which we didn't get to do a lot growing up. And like, why would you want to go to a high school football game? To be fair, I like in hindsight, I don't know, but there's something exciting about being the other. And instead of going to Shabbat dinner, going to a football. Woo! And then I'll finish with a poem about tattoos. On Friday nights, okay, first of all, I apologize in advance to Anthony. This is not fictional in a way, but you know, I talk about the big knuckles of old people, and I'm kidding, but it's there. It's not nice. American Sabbath. On Friday nights, I didn't go to cowboy football games at the high school. Instead, Mom loaded the 14-passenger van and drove us to Grandma's for Shabbat dinner. I resented lighting those yellow candles, singing in a dead language that separated me from the living. Resented the salty brisket, the raisin kugel, getting kisses from old ladies with big knuckles. I wanted to paint blue horses on my cheeks and rumble the aluminum bleachers with my fists. I wanted to wear a denim skirt above the knees and get high off of the testosterone on the turf. Talk to boys whose names didn't end in Burger and Stein. Feel hot in the cheeks and fingers, and not because of guilt. I wanted to bow to some other empty god for a change. Okay, one last poem. Does anyone here play fantasy football? No? Okay, well, we'll just skip over it. You're proud. I don't even know what page this poem is. I'm going to read you. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna end this on a football poem. This book is like partially about toxic masculinity. I know it's exhausting to like think about how women are so toxic, but like a little bit. What our society was built off of. So I have poems in here naturally about football, because football is like acting out this performance of violence. So it seemed very natural to go in this book. We're gonna do a choose your own adventure though. Would you like to hear a poem about football? And it's called, let's see, which football poem? Or would you rather hear, I know, this is like Libra decision making here. Paralysis, would you rather hear a spiteful poem or a poem about football? Spiteful? I can't. A lot of you answered that very quickly. I read that at every reading. It's a great poem, but I read it at every reading.
You promised to.
Okay, you're right. It's a good one. It's a good one. It's in here. Okay. It's in this book. It's called Dear Daughter Tattoo. So this back in 2014 when the Cincinnati library contest thing, and I had just gotten out of grad school, I sent in my poem and I'm like, Heather's gonna win. And it won it very quickly. It was like my first small little local thing I won, and I was very excited about it. Because I want to give the mortician something to laugh at. Because we're all so serious all the time. Because there was nothing better to do. Because my friend had a needle and a bottle of India ink, and that tattoo disappeared actually. So that's good. Because the body is not final. Because my mother told me no. Because there are some things you just don't want to let go. Because the only way to remember a mantra is to put it on a rib or a thigh. Because I had money I didn't need. Because I had bare skin I didn't like. Because all of my friends were doing it and are still doing it and will never stop me. Because my ancestors were tagged against their will. Because if there's anything I can take back, it is not history. Because if there's anything I can change, it's myself. And because if I can celebrate anything, I will. And we can end it on that. Let's celebrate. I'm sorry. Okay. You're gonna clap. That's fine. I really do appreciate that you came out here to spend time with me and appreciate and love on this book. It is a labor of this. Is like took me longer to incubate than I did. Moms did. So like a lot of hard work has gone into this. And Manuel is going to just lead a little Q&A, and he's also an incredible poet. His book has some similar overlap to this. So just ask him for a book.
Oh, should we like sit here?
Oh, sure. Sure.
Is it okay if we sit here next to each other to have a conversation with you and with each other? But first, I have to say that I am very happy to be here talking with Rae, because I am very impressed by this book. Precisely because of the things that Sara said. This is a book about many things. And me, having come to this country as an adult, I was born and raised in Mexico. I came here when I was 22 to study. The idea was to go back. I never did. I met a woman. And then this for me is like clearly American book. This is a book that couldn't have been written in any other country. This is a book that you need to be American, you need to be a woman, you need to be a mother, you need to be a poet, you need to be Rae to write this. This book couldn't have, any of these poems could have gotten out of the pen of any other person in any other moment. This is a gift that was meant for her and meant for us through her. And this is sometimes a very difficult book. Sometimes it is a very painful book. It's a book about violence. It is a book about loss. It is a book about not understanding, about wanting to accept things, about constantly having to fight and fight with love. So when she told me, would you like to present my book? I said, yes. Would you like to write this thing in the back? Yes. What's the name of your book? She told me, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm the person to present this particular book, but then I read the book. And many times I was running to my wife. She said, you have to read this. It's very difficult. This is a book that even though it's a short book, it's a book that is impossible to read fast. I had to put it down several times. I finished a poem and I had to put the poem down because the hit of reality was the slap in the face. And I needed to recover. And I am thankful for those lighter poems because we need to come out and breathe, to go again down. And I want to ask you, this is a book that talks about many things. Were you attempting to talk about all of those things? Or you said, well, I'm going to write a book about football, and then all of the other things happen. Or you said, I want to write a book about, my Jewish childhood, and then all of the other things happen. When did football became the overarching metaphor of your book? Because it ties the book down, but the book is not about football. You use football to talk about other things.
Yeah.
When did that metaphor take you?
I think when I realized, this is gonna sound ridiculous, you all, might feel the same. You just feel sometimes like you are the bitch of society. Like you are just some pawn to the life you were born into. And there are different words that describe you, like Jewish, you could be gay, you could whatever words that choose to describe you, whatever role you play in the world. And then what emerged is, well, what are all the ways in which other people are just bitches? just like, I don't want to say pawns because that's a very heavy word. We're not all pawns. We have freedoms and lots of things. But football players and athletes in general emerged. And then it was like, well, they're Greek gods, who in some ways have a lot of overlap with athletes, or just the way in which we romanticize what they do. And then it became this is getting very complicated. So the book became all of those things. But it began as a little seed of what seems to be just like the people who feel helpless by society, by the world we have created up around them. It's like women, especially mothers, athletes, so much pressure to perform in a certain way.
But at the same time, your book is not victimizing.
No, it's not, because there's some beauty in what you're born into or what you have to do, because in some ways you only have so much control. Of course, we have agency. You can choose to be a football player, or you can choose to be a parent. Not all the time. Some people don't choose, and that just happens to them. But there are many ways in which you can take back that power and reclaim it and celebrate it.
Now, what I saw in many poems in this book is the tension between the things that happen to you, for example, being born into a religion, being born into American society, being born into your body, being a woman, all of those things that you didn't choose, right? But in poems like Tattoos, that is a poem of, I take this choice. I think one of your verses is, because my mother told me not to do so. Mm-hmm. So it is precisely going against the things that are on you. Mm-hmm. How do you see it, like, how do you understand yourself in this tension in society, and how is that in the poems? Like, do you feel that writing the poem is an act of exercising your freedom, or writing the poem is an act of telling your lack of freedom?
Probably both. I would say it's a mixture of both, but more the biggest motivator in this book is feeling like the other and finding my way to carve myself in. Okay, I feel like the other because here are a bunch of tattoos, and that goes against the norm of Judaism and maybe other norms. But here's my way of carving myself a space to be in here as the other, but also as an insider, which is why I wanted you to blurb my book. I was like, wow, Manuel is the other coming into this world, with this very different culture, it's probably shocking, obviously, at first. And then like, who would better read this and understand the otherness, but also the insider at the same time?
I thought about these connections when you were reading this poem about Shabbat, and you were talking about the otherness of the other language. You know,
Yeah.
like this other language that makes you part of this particular community, but it also excludes the other side of the community, which was surrounded.
Yeah.
And also the Jewish history of migration, which is all the time there.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you were born into a country, you are born from migrating people that has
Yes.
historically moved out of places. And as a migrant, I for the first time I felt very close with the Jewish culture.
Mhm.
You see what I mean?
Mhm.
Because there was I saw that link. These poems also, this is also an idea that Sarah said before. Link the immediate domain, everything that we see, you know, a plate of food, a football game, with the idea of transcendence. You're always, let's take the Bible of mind, right? You're always talking about something that is beyond what we see of the person. Do you think that poetry for you is an affirmation of that?
I feel like this is a good example of the duality. I always like to ground people in images that are solid, and then yes, take them beyond that to show them that the two things exist. Yes, we can have a football laying on fake grass, but yes, also our body is not final, or our body is final. Always between these two different things, between the world we see and the world we don't see.
Which is also that something it's not that I know anything about it. It's also something that has to yoga, right?
It's a huge
It's
yoga
the body
Yep.
connecting you with something that is beyond the body.
Mhm.
I guess that obviously we're not yoga.
Which the irony is, I wrote this book long before I became a yoga teacher.
Oh, really?
But long before I became a yoga teacher, but I've always been dabbled in the yoga practice. So I've always been very much drawn to Buddhism and this idea that there are things that don't really matter. We're playing a role in life, and it's all like for what? So curious. So curious.
I have a question that is really a very selfish question for us because I need this answer. Even though your book is talking about American society and it's talking about many things that are very sad, your book never let me fall into this state. But a lot of times when I read the news, I do fall into this state. And I feel very sort of cold, I am very sad. And then I turn into poetry to write something. But reading your poems, I felt sometimes the awfulness of these sections of American society. And still was able to see some beauty. Is that how you see the world?
Yeah, that's how I live.
You never fall into that.
Oh no, I fall into despair, but I always make sure that I throw down some sort of rope. And I'm like, I see you rope, but I want to be in despair a little longer. Like I see you, your rope, I can climb up, but I would like to be down in this hole for another day. I'm just gonna be sad about this. And then I always try to give I always have an exit route to how to bring myself back up. Because bad things happen to everyone. The world we live in is very dark. And like I said, we have very little control over the things that happen around us. But I do believe very firmly that there is this sort of ripple effect. And if I can show that I am strong, then maybe people who don't have the ability to use the words I do to talk about the terrible things that have happened to them, then maybe they feel a little bit more empowered to do that. Or they see like, okay, well, not all hope is lost. Yeah, or here are the words to describe this terrible thing that has happened. Yes, it's bad. We can all acknowledge that. We can all just hang out in this hole together for a minute. But also we can climb up out of it. And we're still here. Like this goes back to the yoga thing. Like take a deep breath. We're here. We're sitting in these chairs. And like everything is in this moment in time. We are okay. We're okay. We're breathing. We're eating good food. We're celebrating with each other. And no one is coughing with COVID. You know what I mean? Like, and that comes out in my poems. Yes, there are some really sad moments in a poem, and there are lines that are really difficult to read, like the first very poem, which is like people unloading guns into each other, and that's not going to change anytime soon. But here we are, and we are safe in this moment. And whether or not we get shot up in a grocery store next week, that would be horrible. But here we are now, so let's use this time to like be with each other. And that's what every poem I hope does.
That role for you.
Mhm.
Is poetry part of that role?
Absolutely. Yes, writing in general, but especially poetry. I have books that I turn to for every period of life that gets difficult. And poetry is a part of it, music is a part of it, yoga is a part of it. I'm sure you all have your ropes that get you up out of moments of despair, but it's like they're all made up of different fibers, and poetry is a huge part of it. And since I was a kid, I've always journaled. So like this is very much a practice of that.
I have a question on the poetic process as a poet. What goes through you? Is it an image? Is it a sound? Is it words?
With
Is it
each
an
poem,
idea? With each poem?
like how do they start?
Oh,
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
It depends on the poem. It depends on the poem. If I have like an hour free, Ben is gonna hang out with that. If you're taking to the park, I sit down and I do a little free writing and I think, what is it that I'm trying to, usually starts with a concept.
concept.
Yeah, what am I trying to get across? And this book was different. This book is a bunch of poems. Some began with a line, but my writing now, and even some of these begin with a concept. Like, oh, I want to write about how football, fantasy football is like, it's an addiction. Sorry, Brett. Like, let's say that's just an example that I want to write. It's just an example. How am I going to do that? And then I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to write about fantasy fiction and how it's an addiction. Then maybe I might write a poem that begins with every line starting the same way. Like that repetition will show that is like me. You know my book better than I do. Oh God. Yeah, so maybe, and then maybe I'll add a religious component. Like maybe this will be a confession of someone who really loves fantasy football. Maybe I'll make it seem like they're confessing, and maybe it'll seem like it's bad. And then it just spirals, and a poem, just like a painting, takes a long time to like be a finished thing. But maybe it starts with "Forgive me, Father, I've sinned." So like I will start with the concept, and then from there it will emerge into something else.
But you don't have a full idea of what you will say.
Not always, but I usually always have like a last line or some line that is like the main event of the poem, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you like to do it?
Yeah, and then maybe we'll do one last question if you all want to eat and drink, and we can turn on music and hang and move these chairs out of the center so we don't have to feel like we have to sit. Okay. I really love this poem. Brett, this is dedicated to you. Brett is not a fantasy football addict like I'm making it seem. This is just one way of interpreting fantasy football. Confessions of a fantasy football addict. Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. By the way, I don't know what happens in professional booths, so I'm being a jackass. So if I am perceiving this incorrectly, please tell me. Like, I don't know what it's like to confess. So forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. I've been counting yards all day. I've traded running backs I used to love for running backs I hate to need. I've been checking stats on my desktop, tablet, phone. I've cheered for two teams playing against one another. I've prayed for the injuries and failures of decent men. I've trash talked, lied, and summoned the draft king. I've put all 5 leagues before my family. It's not about the money. I'm just a competitive person. Is it so wrong, Father, that I get high playing those unpredictable bodies for the one day it will all go my way? Thank you, friends. Thank you. If you would like to get up, I'm happy to move those chairs.
I have one more question.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I do. Because there is a poem that touched me in particular.
Which one?
Is Baby Give Us a Seat.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a poem that talks about brokenness. And I am always scared. I have 4-year-old. I am always scared of explaining the brokenness of the world. Because right now, so far, she doesn't know that the world is that broken.
Yeah.
My daughter, and I know that you will have your version of this conversation, yours. But my daughter right now doesn't know that she's a brown girl in America. if she doesn't know the meaning of the color of her skin. But she will. And I'm scared of that. But maybe you will have to talk one day about many other things. And in this poem, you talk about how to teach, how to love broken. And I think that your book taught me how to love broken. But not that.
Can I read that poem? It's my favorite. Can I read it? Thanks. This is okay. So these are all images from Cincinnati, and specifically, this is like the area between North Side and Finneytown. And I'm trying to think of what that's even called. Not College Hill. Oh my gosh, it's closer to Wyoming. It's closer to Wyoming. Elmwood Place-ish.
Place,
Like,
yeah,
that's an
I'm a
example.
place.
Carthage.
Carthage, yes.
Carthage moment. But anyway, this is me, and this is explaining to Ivy, as Manuel said, much more eloquently, what our city is, like this city here. Baby, here is the city. I promise this is the last one. When I finally cradle you like a football, protective and eager, I will say, the world wasn't always like this child, split like a rotten walnut, pungent and leaking. Once everything was green and quiet, and we didn't know we were naked. For now, while you are another hungry organ inside me, I give you a tour of the city. You'll one day learn too how to love and fight for something broken. There on the corner of boarded up school, across from that convenience shop with the LED lights around the windows and bulletproof glass. Just a mile in either direction, small factories people pour from as soon as it is dark, and sometimes gunfire. And their child, where your great grandpa used to live when he wasn't at the JCC or theater or playing tennis with shirtless men he so badly wanted to love, but would dare not. There in that broken down apartment, like the others we pass, mold and ivy growing up the sides, not letting go. This idea of clinging to the parts that are beautiful and not letting go of them, despite of what happens all around that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.